The fourth year of the Overwatch League is about to reach its climax. The 8 teams duking it out could end up producing the most complex bracket in league history. Fans know what's at stake here, but some viewers may not be aware of the unique storylines which go beyond the winners and losers. To build upon the hype, here are some interesting facts about the 2021 playoffs. Fact number 1. Toby, for the 3rd year in a row, has an opportunity to pull off a historic feat. If the Fusion win the Grand Finals, Toby would become the first player in pro Overwatch history to win a World Cup gold medal, Apex Championship, and Overwatch League Grand Finals. Multiple players have completed 2 out of 3 achievements throughout the years. Numerous current and former Shock players have the World Cup and Grand Finals, but no Apex title. Then you have guys like Gesture and Prophet, who are just missing the gold medal at this point. Out of all facts about the OWL playoffs, this one might be the most underappreciated due to Toby losing his starting job to Funny Astro. But even if Toby doesn't play a single map in the Grand Finals or the playoffs, that shouldn't matter. Toby would likely be the only player to complete this crowning achievement, and that deserves some appreciation. He's been working hard throughout the years. With Apex long gone and the World Cup on hiatus, there aren't many other players with a realistic shot besides Toby. Furthermore, as one of the longest active pros, an achievement like this would be a great send-off if he decides to retire after this year. Let's see if the Fusion can do him a solid. Fact number 2. Did you know that the Dallas Fuel are the only team in this playoff bracket to have never won a playoff game before? They're one of only 5 franchises to be in this position overall if you do not count play-in tournament matches. I personally do not consider them to be a part of the playoffs, but maybe you do. The other teams, if you're going off of my logic, are Toronto, Guangzhou, Paris, and Houston. 2020 marked the Fuel's first ever playoff appearance in franchise history, and they got eliminated in the first round at the hands of Decay and the Washington Justice, who they just so happen to be playing again. Despite their recent success, nothing can change that the Fuel have yet to overcome this curse. Lucky for Dallas though, their current roster is way better than any product they've given us in the past. Throw in a double elimination bracket this go around and it gives the Fuel a very strong chance to finally move forward. Another barrier of sadness could potentially be removed for Dallas fans across the globe. Hopefully Sparkle and the boys can deliver. Speaking of sadness, newer fans may not know how heavily involved Prophet and Gesture usually are in the playoffs. 2021 marks the first time in league history where this dynamic duo is not participating. The previous 3 years saw them at least make the round of 8 while playing for the London Spitfire and Seoul Dynasty. What's even crazier to think about is how the streak stretches beyond the league itself. Apex, which was basically OWL before it existed, saw these two find success as well. While playing for GC Busan, the pair managed to win Season 4 of Apex. From what I can tell, this happened to be their first ever major event. In other words, Prophet and Gesture have always been in contention to win a title up until now in their careers. A streak of this magnitude is rare to come by, and it truly deserves some recognition and respect. Even some of Pro Overwatch's most accomplished players have seen failure at the start of their careers or at least towards the middle of it. Prophet and Gesture have always been winners, so taking a step back like this may be difficult for both the duo and their fans to easily accept. While we're on the topic of success and winning playoff games, that gets me into the first San Francisco Shock fact of the video. It's no secret that the Shock are currently the most dominant playoff team in league history. For those counting at home, the Shock's current playoff record heading into Tuesday is 11-1. Their one loss came in 2019 to the Atlanta Reign, which came down to a map 7 and a famous C9. However, a different statistic may demonstrate their dominance even better. The Shock's playoff map record sits at 42-14. Only 3 of those losses came in their 2019 run, by the way. After the first round upset at the hands of the Reign back then, the Shock ended up winning 20 maps straight, which is still the longest playoff streak in league history. Despite going up against the best competition in the world, the Shock have consistently shown up during the pivotal moments throughout the years. Different roster or not, the San Francisco Shock still possess veterans with championship experience, and that gets me into fact number 5. The Shock by far have the most players with Grand Finals experience under their belt, with 6. Technically 7 if you count Tayo, but he hasn't played any maps. Krusty, the head coach of the San Francisco Shock, also possesses an advantage. Did you know that Krusty is the only person in the 2021 playoffs to have been the head coach of a Grand Finals team before? I believe that every other coach to have been in this position before is no longer in the league, or they're Changun from the Seoul Dynasty who did not make the playoffs this year. Technically, 9K of the Philly Fusion was on the Shock during their 2019 title run, but he was only an assistant back then, so he didn't have the same level of responsibility. Krusty's longevity is noteworthy. His experience making decisions under the highest pressure could be a major difference maker as the Shock attempt to go for the three-peat. Fact number 7. A familiar stage. Despite numerous changes to the league, there are still plenty of players with Grand Finals experience in this tournament. There are 15 total players to have played at least one map in the Grand Finals in this playoff bracket. This includes Poco, who has been unable to travel to his team's headquarters in Korea this entire year, unfortunately. When including who has not played but was part of a Grand Finals team, the total goes up to 17. I talked about Tayo earlier, but Closer has also won a ring before, as he was a bench player on the 2018 Spitfire. Overall, this level of experience and veteran leadership will surely lead to some close matches with strong decision-making, but more importantly, it gives the Shock, Justice, Fusion, and Gladiators an edge over the other playoff teams. While we're on the topic of veterans, here's another interesting fact for you. The 8 combined playoff rosters boast 19 inaugural season veterans. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but I believe Atlanta and Chengdu are the only teams without one of these players. While many all-time greats have retired throughout the years, multiple Season 1 veterans are still pursuing championships. It goes to show that longevity in Overwatch and esports in general is more than possible. These longtime players set a good example. They're proof that determination and passion for the game can be enough to keep up with a constantly evolving league where the competition is always getting better. The old saying isn't totally true. Sometimes an old dog really can learn new tricks. Taking a break from the past, did you know that the Washington Justice are the only team in the playoffs with 0 current or former MVP candidates? I suppose Decay should have been in the race during 2020, but then everything happened with the Fuel where he left mid-season, so he ended up being disqualified. Everybody else, though, they check off the boxes. Dallas have 3 guys, Shanghai have like 4, the Shock have 4, Philly have 2, then Atlanta, Chengdu, and the Glads all have 1. Could this be a bad omen for the Washington Justice? Or is this actually good luck? You tell me. Heading back into Shock territory, did you know that they have almost as many playoff wins as every other team in this bracket combined? If you don't count the play-ins, the Shock have won 11 playoff games, as mentioned previously. Meanwhile, everybody else combines for 15 if I did the math right. If you want to include the play-ins though, that bumps the Shock up to 12 and the 7 others to 19. It's still pretty ridiculous that a single franchise can at least come close to 7 others combined. It goes to show you how dominant the Shock have been throughout the years. Despite this continued dominance though, the Shock have somehow, some way, never been the top seed in the playoffs or representing their region for that matter. The Vancouver Titans beat them out in 2019, then both the Fusion and Dragons managed to top them out in 2020. That in itself makes for an interesting fact. The top seed in the playoffs has never won the Grand Finals before. Kind of reminds me of the NFL. You might be the top dog, but all it takes is one upset for you to become forgettable. As the old saying goes, it's not about how you start, but how you finish. The Shock are the ultimate case of this in the pro Overwatch world. They've had slow starts and times where they seem beatable, but in crunch time, they're the ones to show up and make the big plays. It's a big reason why people still are convinced they can do another playoff run even after all the struggles and changes this year. The Shock truly are the most persistent franchise this league has to offer. But how about we give some love to the teams out of China? Don't worry, I didn't forget about you guys. If the Hunters or Dragons were to win the Grand Finals, it would mark the first time in league history where at least one player from China is a part of a championship roster. Obviously, if Chengdu won the championship, it would be a lot more than 1. But Shanghai, on the other hand, they only have 1 thanks to Mali. Imagine a world where Mali could brag that he is the only Chinese player to win a ring. That would be wild. Especially when you consider that Chengdu let him go during the offseason. It would be poetic almost if the Dragons beat Chengdu along the way to get that trophy. Mali in all likelihood would never see the stage in a playoff run, but he's still part of history either way in this scenario, so there's no reason to complain. Okay, I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about the Shock, but I got one more for ya. Did you know that the Shock have never lost to the Washington Justice before? Every other team in this bracket has taken down the Shock at least once. It's yet another place where the Justice seem to be the odd ones out. Ranging back to 2019, I believe the Justice are 0-6 in the head-to-head. There was a loss in 2019, 4 in 2020, and 1 this year. It's funny to look back at how the Justice have completely changed their roster 3 different times, but still come up shorthanded anyway. Try as they might, the Shock always seem to have their number. The last few matches have been pretty close to be fair, so maybe that trend could finally change if these two were to meet again in the bracket, but it's still something worth noting. And finally, the last did you know of the day comes from the city that never sleeps. Did you know this is the first year in Overwatch League history where the NYXL have failed to make the playoffs? I believe now the Gladiators are the only team who have made the playoffs every single year. Another fun fact about the NYXL is they were also the only team remaining which had always gotten to the top 4 or better every single year. People tend to laugh at the NYXL for never delivering when it truly matters, but looking back at it, they posted some consistently strong results throughout the Season 1 core era. And I mean, while they haven't technically delivered in a big way in the playoffs before, some people forget they were literally just 1 map away from the Grand Finals back in 2019. All in all, the NYXL, they're one of the most successful franchises in League history. This was the first year they weren't amazing, but it was also year 1 of a rebuild and a roster overhaul, so it's pretty understandable. If a 7-9 regular season record is your worst performance to date, I would say you're doing something right. This year had a tough end to it, but the future looks bright for a young group on the rise. In a constantly changing league, it's impressive how many historic facts and storylines about the 21 AL playoffs there are. There's so much potential history in the making depending on the end results. Be sure to tune into the Overwatch League playoffs from September 21st through 25th to witness it all play out in real time. And on that note, that's all I've got for you in this one. There's probably so many other things I missed out on too. This video only scratches the surface. If you have any other interesting facts to add on to this, throw them down in the comment section. I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this content, dropping a like and a sub would mean a ton. And if you want to see more of these interesting fact videos, let me know in the comments below because I had a blast making this. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.